Today I'm going to tell you which cities in the United States might be too far gone to make a comeback, ever. We all have our hopes for where we live or where we're from. Every city, state, and town has its ups and its downs. Sometimes those downs seem to go on for so long that we start to wonder if those ups are ever going to happen. And then we start to wonder if it's even worth fixing. Sort of like a 1974 Pinto with a door that won't open and a bumper sticker that reads gas, grass, or nobody rides for free. Today we look at 10 cities that have sucked for so long that they're probably gonna suck forever. Get it? Got it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, cities not on the list. Now, there's a few cities that some of you will assume or think should be on this list. We all know what they are: San Francisco and Chicago. These are cities that have a ton of problems right now. We all hear the stories, we all see the videos, but I believe they will and maybe have to make a comeback. And that is for one reason and one reason only: money. These cities, for all their faults, are two of the most important cities to the US economy. San Francisco and Chicago will always have their problems, but I think they have already hit rock bottom and they will only be getting better. Los Angeles and Houston could also sort of fit in this category, but LA is already making a pretty good comeback. They're at least making strides, and I think Houston's on the verge of starting their comeback. Number 9, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is a nightmare, and the decline, like many cities, is a complex, multifaceted issue that can't really be pinpointed to one single moment in time. Most cities' problems are attributed to a combination of historical, economic, and social factors. That being said, statistics showed there was one significant turning point in Memphis's history: the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968 at the Lorraine Motel. This tragic event had a profound impact on the city, leading to civil unrest, white flight to the suburbs, and economic disinvestment in certain areas. A lot of companies bailed after that, and a lot of them didn't come back. Matter of fact, most of them didn't come back. The ensuing decade saw a decline in manufacturing industries, which was a major source of employment for many of the residents, contributing to rising poverty levels and a decrease in economic opportunities. Basically, Memphis got a stain on itself from that one event, and they have never been really able to fully recover from that. And they have followed the same pattern that many cities that have been dying for years have followed. Poor education numbers have led to poverty. Poverty leads to more crime. More crime, more poverty, less education means certain companies won't move into the city. That means less opportunity. It's like a snowball effect. Right now, Memphis is known as one of the most violent cities in the United States, and it has for years. In my opinion, I don't see them making a comeback in most of our lifetime. It's really unfortunate because Memphis has played a big part in American history and music history. Number 8, Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana's decline can be traced back to several factors that began to take a toll on the city's prosperity in the mid-20th century. One significant factor was the decline in the steel industry. This was pretty much the backbone of Gary's economy since its founding in the early 1900s. As the steel industry faced increasing competition from foreign markets and automation, many steel mills in the region, including those in Gary, began to shutter their operations. As you can imagine, this resulted in massive job losses, and the city's economy began to deteriorate rapidly. This was over 70 years ago, right? And they still haven't recovered. Gary, Indiana right now is a shell of what it once was. This region is a mess because Gary, Indiana basically butts up against the worst part of Chicago, the South Side. Drive down any street in Gary, Indiana, or go to Google Maps and just look. Almost every single block has a few abandoned homes or vacant lots. The good news is you could buy a house there for the same price as a Toyota Prius. Most people won't want either, but they're there. Number 7, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Pine Bluff, Arkansas is where safety and happiness go to die. Pine Bluff, Arkansas began to experience a decline in its economic and social well-being during the later half of the 20th century. The city had thrived in the early years, primarily due to the strategic location to the Arkansas River, which facilitated trade and commerce. However, several factors kind of played into Pine Bluff's decline. Mechanization of agriculture led to a significant loss of jobs in the region once dominated by the cotton industry. This drove up unemployment and drove up poverty. Of course, once you have those two going up, crime follows. Pine Bluff started losing population in the 1980s. At the 1990 census, they had a little bit of an increase, 0.9%, but then it was back down to losing 3 decades in a row. And trust me, they're going to make it 4. If you're not moving out, someone's going to push your off button in this city. So my advice to anyone living in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, leave your stuff behind, get up around 5 in the morning, and leave town. Trust me, trying to pack a George Foreman grill is not worth your life. Number 6, Port Arthur, Texas. Port Arthur was once a thriving industrial city located along the Gulf of Mexico. It began to experience a decline in the later half of the 20th century. The city's fortunes were closely tied to the oil industry, with major refineries like Gulf Oil and Texaco operating in the area. However, several factors contributed to Port Arthur's economic downturn. The oil industry experienced fluctuations, which is always a bummer, with periodic downturns in oil prices affecting the local job market. Additionally, environmental concerns arose due to the pollution from the refineries impacting the health of the residents and causing some to move away. Not some, a whole bunch. Racial tensions and segregation also played a role in the city's struggles, and of course the education system kind of broke down, as did the economic opportunities. One cool thing is real estate's extra cheap here. You could actually find a house for the same price that bail costs when you punch a clown at a carnival. Don't ask me how I know that. While efforts have been made over the years to address the issues with the local economy, the decline of Port Arthur's industrial base has had a lasting impact on the city's economic and social well-being, requiring ongoing revitalization efforts to create a more prosperous future for the city. But they got a long ways to go, and it's not going to happen. That's my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. Number 5, Camden, New Jersey. Right across the Delaware River from Philadelphia, you have Camden, New Jersey. There are 2 main bridges that get people from Camden to Philadelphia and Philadelphia to Camden. There's the Walt Whitman Bridge and the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. If you've ever seen the movie Bridge over the River Kwai, you'll see why the people of Philadelphia often dream of that happening here. Camden is a nightmare. It has been for a long time. The violent crime rate here is 325% above the national average. They have almost 1,600 incidents per every 100,000 residents. Camden began a period of significant decline during the mid-20th century, marked by various socioeconomic and urban challenges. Like many industrial cities in the U.S., Camden experienced a shift away from manufacturing, which for the longest time was almost all this city had. Manufacturing and shipping. And if your manufacturing goes away, a lot of your shipping does too. Things like that just make a bad situation worse. If you were in college and you wanted to study urban decline, this is a good place to start. Number 4, Jackson, Mississippi. Hands down, the worst capital city in the United States. And that's saying a lot because Baton Rouge is also a capital city. Jackson, Mississippi witnessed a gradual decline that began in the mid-20th century, like a lot of cities, primarily influenced by complex social, economic, and political factors. In the decades following World War II, Jackson's urban landscape transformed as suburbanization took hold, basically people moving out the suburbs. This led to a decline in the city's population and the flight of businesses and middle-class residents to the suburbs. Now, this trend was driven in part by the expansion of the highways, which made it easier for people to commute from the suburbs to work in the city. The population shift really contributed to the decline in the city's tax base and the deterioration of the infrastructure. Now, despite ongoing efforts to revitalize Jackson, the city continues to grapple with these, serious issues. It'll never get better. Number 3, Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan's shortcomings were on full display about a decade ago. The decision to switch the city's water source to the Flint River without proper corrosion control measures resulted in lead contamination in the drinking water. This public health disaster further eroded the trust in the local government, which created a firestorm of lawsuits, paranoia, and conspiracy theories. But Flint, Michigan's decline can be tracked back to several key factors. The city once thrived as a center for the automotive industry, home to General Motors, which provided thousands thousands of well-paying jobs. The decline of the American automotive industry and the outsourcing of manufacturing jobs to cheaper labor markets in the 1970s and 80s hit Flint really hard. They had massive layoffs. Manufacturing plants closed their doors, and they never came back. I mean, there's still some in the Michigan area, obviously, nothing like it was in its heyday. And it never seems to get any better for Flint. Now, one thing that happened during this that really made me angry, I mean, the whole thing is just outrageous that it happened like this, but these people were getting contaminated water and there's all these lawsuits going on. Well, Flint, the water company there, still wanted to get paid for the contaminated water. They were sending out bills that were in the thousands. I don't think Flint's ever coming back. Number 2, East St. Louis. This was once a thriving industrial city located just across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Missouri. Back before the 1940s, like before World War II, the city was doing great with its strategic transportation links, including railroads and the river access, which attracted industries and a pretty diverse workforce. However, several factors contributed to the decline. Mechanization really killed a lot of the things going on in East St. Louis. As mechanization hit, people started getting laid off because they didn't need the people, sort of like what we're afraid of with AI these days. People always like to leave memes whenever the minimum wage goes up that says, oh, if you want a raise, here's your replacement, and they'll show some like McDonald's kiosk or something like that. Here's the thing, doesn't matter what you're making, maybe a little bit, they'll replace you with a robot in a heartbeat because robots don't get sick. Robots always show up to work. Robots don't sue you for wrongful termination. Robots are rarely involved in sexual harassment lawsuits. Obviously, when I say robots, I mean any kind of automation. And that is probably the reason, the biggest reason at least, East St. Louis took a nosedive right around World War II. Now, it's not just that. The decline of East St. Louis was further compounded by political corruption and financial mismanagement, which hindered the city's ability to provide essential services and maintain the infrastructure. High crime rates, unemployment, and struggling school system created a cycle of poverty that persisted for decades, and still does. East St. Louis is a perfect example of something that might take too much effort to put back together. All right, before we get to number 1, if you've got time and you want to help this channel out, watch one of the suggested videos at the end of this video. Really helps out the channel. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Detroit, Michigan. This should be no surprise to anyone that can read or has watched one of my videos. Detroit, Michigan's been in bad shape for a very long time, much like Flint, but without the water crisis. The auto industry up and left Detroit high and dry. On top of it, they had tons of political corruption. Now, they're downtown, they've kind of turned that one around, but the rest of the city is a frickin' nightmare. Go to Google Maps. I don't suggest you go drive through Detroit. Go to Google Maps, go to the street view, and you will see that there are blocks and blocks of homes with maybe one house on the entire block. Everything else is either burnt out old frames of house or empty lots. The empty lots are there because so many people were setting them on fire for fun or homeless people were living in them that the city just started mowing them over because they became a health crisis and a danger to the community. What was left of the community? At the 1950 census, right after World War II, the population of Detroit maxed out with 1.8 million people. Right now, they have about 620,000 people. They have lost population every single decade since 1950. All predictions show that they're going to be under 600,000 residents at the 2030 census. They have no tax base. Everyone's moved out. There's not much money for infrastructure unless they get it from the federal government, but their local tax dollars ain't cutting it. That's why I say, it's going to be dead forever. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Don't forget to give the video a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.